The xenobiology lecture hall fell silent the moment the roar echoed through the ventilation system. It was a sound that bypassed rational thought and spoke directly to the primitive survival instincts buried deep in every sentient being's brainstem. A low rumbling growl that built into a bone-shaking bellow, promising violence and death. Professor Thalron's three eyes widened in horror, his crystalline skin flickering from its usual calm blue to a panicked orange. Around the circular auditorium, students from a dozen different species froze in place. The Velkari twins pressed themselves against the wall, their feathers standing on end. A Rothian student's tentacles went rigid, and somewhere in the back row, Akix began emitting distress pheromones that made the air taste bitter. "Lockdown protocols," Thalren whispered, his voice barely audible. His manipulator appendages trembled as he reached for the emergency console. "That's a Varathian apex. How in the void did it escape containment?" The roar came again, closer this time, followed by the distinctive sound of reinforced metal being torn apart like wet paper. The research labs were only 2 corridors away. At this rate, the creature would reach them in minutes. Eli Grant, the only human in the advanced xenobiology class, tilted his head slightly. While his classmates exhibited every sign of abject terror, his posture remained relaxed, almost curious. He stood from his seat slowly, earning several horrified glances from nearby students who seemed convinced any movement would summon the monster directly to them. "Professor," Eli said, his voice cutting through the panicked silence with an eerie calm. "Hold on, I know this one." Thalron's middle eye swiveled to focus on the human, confusion momentarily overriding fear. "Nope, what?" "Grant, sit down and remain silent. Varathian apexes hunt by sound and movement. If we're perfectly still..." "It's already detected us," Eli interrupted, walking toward the center of the lecture hall. "Apex predators like this have heat-sensing organs and can smell adrenaline from half a kilometer away. Everyone in here is basically a neon sign screaming, 'Lunch!' Then we're dead," a Velkari twin squeaked. Eli smiled, and there was something unsettling about that expression to the alien students who had never quite gotten used to humans baring their teeth. "Not necessarily. You said this is a Varathian apex, right? 4.2 meters tall, hexapedal, armored carapace, territorial behavior?" "Yes, but got it covered." Eli cracked his knuckles, a gesture that made several students flinch. "Back on Earth, we've got something similar. Well, lots of something similar, actually. Convergent evolution is wild like that." The wall to their left buckled. Massive claws punched through the reinforced metal, each talon the size of a human forearm. The Varathian apex had found them. Professor Thalron's color shifted to a pale white, the Thexian equivalent of mortal terror. His emergency training protocols, carefully memorized over decades of teaching, evaporated from his mind. All he could think was that he was about to watch his students die, and there was nothing he could do about it. But Eli was already moving. The human strode forward as the wall exploded inward, and the Varathian apex squeezed through the opening. It was a nightmare made flesh. Black armored plates covered in ridge patterns, 6 powerful limbs ending in curved claws, and a head that was mostly jaw. Its eyes, small and red, locked onto the room full of prey. Eli planted himself directly in its path. "Hey," he shouted, and his voice carried a strange quality, commanding, fearless, almost aggressive. "Yeah, you. Big and ugly. Look at me." The apex's head swiveled. For a moment, predator and human locked eyes. Then Eli did something that would be discussed in xenopsychology journals for years to come. He roared back. It wasn't a scream of fear or a call for help. It was a roar, a deep primal challenge that came from somewhere in his chest. Eli spread his arms wide, making himself appear larger, and took a deliberate step forward toward the creature that outweighed him by several hundred kilograms. The Varathian apex actually hesitated. "That's right," Eli growled, his voice dropping to something that barely sounded human. "You picked the wrong classroom." He took another step forward, maintaining unwavering eye contact. "I'm an apex predator too, buddy. My species didn't claw its way to the top of the food chain by running away from things like you." The creature's posture shifted slightly, its head lowered, but not an attack, in uncertainty. Eli pressed his advantage. He stomped his foot against the floor, creating a sharp bang that echoed through the hall. "We hunted megafauna to extinction. We domesticated wolves. We made the entire planet our territory." Another stomp. Another step forward. And you know what the scariest part is? The Varathian apex took a step backward. "I'm not even armed right now. This is just me." No tools, no weapons, no pack, just me. And you're backing down. Professor? Thalrin watched in absolute disbelief as the apex predator, a creature that had torn through 3 security doors and a containment field, slowly retreated through the hole it had created. Its red eyes never left Eli, but there was something different in them now. Not hunger, not rage, recognition. The recognition of another predator, and the calculation that this territory might not be worth the fight. When the creature's tail disappeared through the opening, Eli finally relaxed his posture. He turned back to face the class, breathing slightly heavier but otherwise composed. Dominant display behavior, he explained casually, as if he hadn't just stared down death itself. Most apex predators are territorial but not suicidal. They'll back down from a fight if they think the cost is too high. You just have to convince them you're crazy enough to make it expensive. The silence in the lecture hall was deafening. Professor Thalrin's color had shifted to a pale purple, shock mixed with the emotion that didn't quite translate to human understanding. His voice shook when he finally spoke. Grant. That was the most recklessly idiotic. Absolutely insane, he paused, his 3 eyes blinking in sequence. What in the name of the void are you? Eli shrugged, that unsettling human smile returning. Just a guy from a death world, Professor. We do this kind of thing before breakfast. In the back of the room, a Kick student's translator finally processed what had happened. The human scared away a Varathian apex with nothing but attitude and audacity. Yeah, another student whispered, awe creeping into their voice. Humanity, fuck yeah. Eli returned to his seat as security teams finally arrived, looking slightly disappointed at finding the crisis already resolved. Professor Thalrin would need several cycles to process what he'd witnessed, and would eventually recommend Eli for advanced placement in hostile environment survival courses. But in that moment, as the human calmly pulled out his datapad to continue taking notes, one thing became perfectly clear to everyone in that classroom. Humans weren't just survivors from a death world. They were the thing other predators checked for under their beds.